Hello, and how are you, dear student? Welcome to our presentation today. That is our first lesson on transport in plants and animals. My name is Mr. Eric Ogeto. Now let's get into it. The first thing we are going to do is to define transport. That is our major goal. Actually, transport is the movement of substances from one part of the body of an organism to another. This organism could be a plant, or it could be an animal, or it could be a unicellular organism. So as long as substances are moving from one part of the body to the other, that one is called transport. The second thing is, transport really important in the body of organism? Yes, it's very important. Why? Number one, transport facilitates the transportation of nutrients or distribution of nutrients and oxygen to all living cells of the body. Remember, our cells need to survive, they need to live, they need oxygen, they need nutrients, and therefore these nutrients to be distributed all over the body, actually transport is required. Number two, they facilitate the removal of metabolic waste products. Remember, as much as we have transported these nutrients, after the cells work on them, they produce energy, among other essential things that make life to continue. The waste products which accumulate, they need to be eliminated from that part of the body to the other side. The next bit, dear students, is to understand now, how does transport occur in unicellular organisms, the smallest organisms of life? Things like organisms like amoeba, members within the protozoans, bacteria, among others. We realize that these organisms, due to their small nature, they tend, or they expose a very large surface area to volume ratio, and because of that, much of the time the main process that is involved in transport is actually diffusion. So unicellular organisms, because of the large surface area, that question can be asked even the national examinations. Why possibly is the rate of diffusion highest in those small organisms? Or you can be asked to explain why diffusion is the major process that is involved in transport in unicellular organisms. You're going to realize it is because they expose a large surface area to volume ratio. After that, let us now go to, what about multicellular? Multicellular organisms, this refers to organisms with more than one cell, and of course which are more advanced, like higher plants, like animals, organisms that are multicellular. Now, in this case, we are going to realize that the higher an organism becomes, the less or the smaller the surface area to volume ratio that is likely to be exposed. And because of this, the organisms, they will tend to have a particular elaborate system of transportation. You're going to realize, for example, in plants, we have the vascular system. The vascular system, that's how they transport their substances. In animals, you are going to see circulatory system much later within this particular topic. So therefore, the materials which are there, the organisms are more complex, and therefore they cannot rely only on division as their main method. Also because of the many processes that occur within their bodies, those organisms are more advanced. Now, let us begin. Transport in plants. Remember, even in plants, we have two categories of plants. Remember, plants are in three main divisions, and the simplest of all the divisions is division Bryovita. That's where we get organisms like liverworts and moss plants. Those organisms are very small also. They are going to rely on physiological processes like diffusion, osmosis, and even active transport to do what? To carry out transport. But when you look at higher plants, as we said earlier, is that they will need a specialized transport system. That is called a vascular system, or the vascular bundles, or the vascular transport system. So that one, the vascular system, actually comprises of two major parts. The first part is the xylem, actually xylem, it is going to transport water and dissolve mineral salts from the soil to other parts of the plant. Dear student, ensure that you mark the word dissolved, meaning the mineral salts from the soil, they must be in a solution form so they can be able to be transported in the tubular or within the xylem tissue. That is the first part of the vascular system. Number two, we have the phloem, or sometimes we call it phloem. This one will transport manufactured but dissolved food substances, for example glucose, from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Remember, this is the points of manufacture or synthesis. In most cases, plants, when they make their own food, they are going to manufacture it in the leaves and maybe other parts which are green, but then transportation of this, translocation. Actually, when we talk about phloem, we are going to talk about a process in the near future called translocation. So that is about the vascular system. Now, the next thing we are going to do is, now we have already understood that the transportation takes place in the xylem and phloem. But when you said xylem, it was actually going to facilitate movement of water and those salts from the soil. But then, for this xylem to work effectively, we need to understand the structure of the root. Remember, the root is the one who is going to ensure that those substances, the water and even the mineral salts, they are obtained first of all from the soil. So it's important for us to know what is the root. Actually, the root is the part of the plant which is embedded within the soil. Its functions include anchorage, that is provision of firm support within the soil to ensure that the plant stands upright. Number two, absorption, we have already said it, absorption of water, and of course dissolved mineral salts. Now, what about internally? How does the structure of a root, appear? In this case, we are going to talk about two types of root structures. We have monocotyledonous root, and of course, we have dicotyledonous root. We are going to understand possibly how does a monocotyledonous root look like, what are some of the differences and the similarities with the dicotyledonous root. So here is a diagram on the monocotyledonous root. We begin from the root hair. We are going to know the function. We come to the epidermis, then we go to the endodermis is there, the cortex, the phloem, the xylem, and of course the pith at the center of it all. And when you look at the arrangement of phloem and xylem, is that they are alternating. So we mark this so that we can be able to see the difference with the dicot when we finally reach there. So when you look at it, the major consideration in this case, of course, at the center of it all, we have the pith. The pith contains parenchyma cells. We are going to say about it in the shortly after this. But then look at the xylem and phloem. The way they are alternating, and as from the diagram you can see, the xylem is more elaborate, it's bigger than the so-called phloem. Now let's move forward. Let us also see what about the dicotyledonous root before we begin understanding the functions of each of the parts. Now this is the dicotyledonous root, and of course we have in the other side we have added a diagram at the longitudinal section that shows the regions of growth, which we are going to discuss much later in Form 3, the regions of growth of this particular root. But now when you look at the first one, things which are common with the monocotyledonous root is that we are both they both have the root hairs, the epidermis is the same, the cortex is there, the endodermis, all the other parts, but and even the pericycle. But when we reach the center, that is what I want my students to focus on. When we reach the center, we can be able to see the xylem actually being star-shaped, and then the phloem is found within the arms of that particular star, and then we can see the pith is absent in this particular structure. So therefore, student to note that particular point that we have highlighted there. So when you look at the longitudinal section, the part which is embedded deep down in the soil before the apical meristem comes in is the root cap. Now we are going to understand what is the function of this root cap. The root cap, it consists of simple parenchyma cells that protect the delicate, actually the word delicate is supposed to be there, the delicate root tip and even the delicate apical meristem. Students be informed that this is the region of growth in the plants, and this one is where the apical meristem, when you mention about it, this is where we have the primary growth, the increase in the height of a plant. That is the function of the root cap. Then the piliferous layer, sometimes we call it the epidermis. It's special in young roots, but in all the plants we have the epidermis. This is what gives rise to the root hairs. So the root hairs which we saw projecting from the epidermis are given rise, or they're produced by the piliferous layer. We have the cortex, which was very prominent. The cortex, it contains loosely packed parenchyma cells. It acts as a storage tissue. Actually, when you stain the cortex with iodine solution, in most cases, it will turn blue-black, meaning that in this cortex, we have stored starch among other food substances within the plant. We have the pericycle. The pericycle, this is a single layer of cells beneath or below the endodermis, just next to the endodermis, that is going to give rise to lateral roots. These are roots which grow sideways from the main root. Then when you continue the parts, we are going to have more parts. The vascular bundle, we also already mentioned about it earlier. That is about xylem and phloem. And of course, we had given their functions. But in this case, we also want to see the small difference which was there. The vascular bundles, when you look at the vascular bundles in monocot root and the dicot root, you are going to see that in monocot, the xylem and phloem are alternating. Yeah, they are alternating. But in dicot, we said the xylem forms a star within at the center, and of course, the phloem is found within the arms of the star. We have a very important part actually called endodermis. Endodermis is the part that is next to these vascular bundles. It contains a layer of cells surrounding the vascular bundles. Actually, its work is to now regulate or control the amount of water and dissolved mineral salts entering the vascular bundle. It is going to have two characteristics. Number one, the starch grain stains blue-black with iodine, and when we mention about this one, students, as we said earlier, that means there are some food substances which are stored there, for example, starch. So iodine solution staining blue-black, that one confirms the presence of actually starch in that particular area. Then number two, we have a Casparian strip. A Casparian strip is an impervious deposit. That one does not allow, it is impermeable, a deposit on the radio and cross walls. This one facilitates the regulation of the amount of water and mineral salts that are entering the vascular bundles. Then finally, we are having the root hairs. The root hairs, they are going to facilitate, they provide a large surface area to ensure that water and dissolved mineral salts have been absorbed actually from the soil. Now, we are going to see a diagram much later of the root hair cells, but let us look at some of the adaptations of the root hair cells to their function. This is a very common area also that can be tested. Number one, they are long to provide a large surface area for absorption of water and mineral salts. So when we talk about an adaptation, dear students, we want three parts of an answer. Number one, we want to see the part or the feature followed by, so for example, in this one, they are long, that is the feature. Then the modification is that to provide a large surface area. Then the function much later for absorption of water and mineral salts. So please ensure that when you write your adaptation, you complete your answers. Number 2, they are a thin-walled, that is the feature. Then the modification is to reduce the distance. Then finally, the function is faster diversion of water and dissolved mineral salts. They are also numerous. When you are writing this point, ensure that maybe it is theoretical. Possibly if you can get a question number 1, you are asked the state 2 adaptations of the root hairs to their function, so you can write that one. But if it's a diagram which has been given to you, you may not write this point because we may not draw numerous ones, but they are numerous because there are very many. That is to increase surface area for what? For absorption of water and mineral salts. Next one is that they are having within their cytoplasm is they have numerous mitochondria, and when you hear about mitochondria, is about a site for respiration. So that one provides energy for active uptake of mineral salts. And finally, the subaqueous that is so large at the center, that it is sap. Remember, the subaqueous stores salts and sugars, so that means they exert a high osmotic pressure that is necessary to ensure absorption of specifically water through the process of osmosis. Now, this is what we were saying, and some of the adaptations of the root hair cell, we can see them here. As you can see, the root hair is really long, and then we are having a large subaqueous at the center, and of course, you may not say now that they are numerous because it's only one which is shown on the screen, but then we can have as many as possible. So let us complete our lesson today by looking at the differences between the dicot root and the monocot root. That one we already said earlier about xylem being a star shaped at the center with the phloem within the arms. And then the monocot is the xylem and phloem are arranged alternately in a ring. Then finally, the dicot does not have a pith as you saw earlier, and then the monocot has a pith. Till next time, students, I wish you well. May God bless you. See you in lesson number 2.